Hundreds of Beavers is a charming independent movie that only cost $150,000 that has gotten a lot of attention recently, and I figured, okay, well, I'll check it out and see what all of the buzz is about. Trying to describe the plot of Hundreds of Beavers is a bit complicated, but it's essentially just that we follow our main character as he attempts to kill the beavers, which are really just people in beaver suits, and then trade in the beaver costumes, or I guess the dead beaver bodies in the world of this movie, because he found someone who will accept beavers or other animals in exchange for certain items, and the last item on that list is a wedding ring, because our main character has fallen in love with the salesman's daughter. Yeah, okay, kind of a weird plot when you describe it that way, but it actually, in the context of the movie, totally makes sense. It's a simple enough plot to make things work, and like I said, the plot of this movie is not really the selling point of this movie, and also, don't worry, I won't spoil anything throughout this movie, although there's not really a lot you can spoil, because this film is much less about what happens, and much more about how it is happening. If you've watched any trailers or clips of this movie, you can immediately tell that this is unlike most movies you will see. There are a very large amount of people in beaver costumes or other animal costumes, and this is very much a slapsticky style film. The best way I could describe it is almost like a cross between a Buster Keaton movie, a Looney Tunes cartoon, and a PlayStation 2 video game, or maybe even like a GameCube video game might be the better example, as there is a lot of video game logic. Even the kind of like the shop feels straight out of a video game of exchanging like the beaver bodies for certain things. In fact, a lot of the events that happen throughout this movie feel video game logic-y or Looney Tunes logic-y would be the main way I would phrase it. In fact, it's less, I say Buster Keaton because it's mostly a silent film, but there isn't a ton of that. There is some of these like weird stunt things and stuff like that, but it also very much is its own thing, and I think does have a modern spin on the silent film, which is kind of fun to see. And again, it's not entirely silent. There are some words spoken, but there also are some title cards, even a joke using title cards throughout it. But one thing really fascinating about this movie is just how many jokes per minute this thing has. Even if you don't like a joke, it's okay because there's going to be another one right after that, is usually pretty funny. So even if you don't love all of them, they just throw a lot of jokes at you. In fact, a large part of this movie is essentially you see our main character, he quickly gains a clear goal, and then once he has that clear goal, quickly tries to accomplish something, like, for example, trying to catch a fish, and then it's how they play with your expectations and how it's, okay, you think he's going to catch a fish this way, but then something else happens. And this movie definitely has like I said, a Looney Tunes style of logic to it. It does not exist in the real world. Things happen that do not happen in the real world consistently. For example, he sneezes at one point, and then that causes a large amount of snot to come out of his nose, and then that freezes, and he uses that now snot icicle, essentially. He uses that to accomplish one of his many goals he has throughout this movie. It's a unique film. To be honest, when I started watching this movie, part of me was like, man, I don't know if I can do nearly 2 hours of this. This is a lot, and I was kind of like, am I even really enjoying this? What's happening here? It was weird. It took a minute to really get used to, but by the time it was over, I was disappointed there wasn't more. I would absolutely watch more of this, and I think with the attention this movie is now getting, we will see more of this, which is kind of cool because, I mean, this is the film that only cost $150,000, but with how much effort was put into this, and also $150,000 is still a lot of money. I know it's not in film terms a lot of money, but it's still a lot of money. But with how much just effort was put into this movie for something that seemingly was always going to be a niche movie, and even now is still a niche movie, even if it's kind of gathered more attention, I think that's really cool to see. And this is a film that, large sections of it are just, either a guy in the snow or a guy with a green screen behind it. And you think that could easily come off as almost, simplistic. But in fact, this movie isn't anything but, and I'm kind of shocked, to be honest, that it was only $150,000. This feels like, I don't know how they got all these shots, to be honest, for some of these things. It's so elaborate and there's so much going on. It's just a really entertaining movie. And again, you kind of have to be in a certain mood. It's definitely a silly movie. It's definitely not one to be taken seriously, but I think that the just, effort that was put into it and just how fun it was really just a joy to watch. I described the plot earlier, and while, again, the plot is very much a basic plot, which sometimes you kind of have to do with a film like this. You can't have things get too complex. I think having that basic plot really did work, as it does keep you invested throughout. Similar to how in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, having just a simple, like, you gotta find the Holy Grail, like, that just does enough that you can kind of, it completes the whole thing. I think if they didn't have that simple plot, which kind of comes in 30 minutes into the movie, I do think that things could have gotten a bit stale. I think having that, allows it to work. There were some moments that, like I said, not every joke worked for me, and there were some moments that I was kind of a little bit ready to move on to another scene. Usually it didn't happen too quickly because it is such a fast-paced movie. Not every aspect of this film worked for me, but most did, and I really, again, it's something that you'll gladly take the downs because of how much high ups there are in this movie, and it's just cool. It's just cool that something like this exists, that someone made a very unique movie that no one else is making, which is kind of the point of filmmaking to some degree. So yeah, for me personally, I would recommend Hundreds of Beavers. It is on digital at this point. You can rent it for, I think, like $6. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was really entertaining, a really fun, easy watch, something you don't have to spend too much emotional energy on watching, right? Kind of an easy thing to check out, but still a fun one. So those are my thoughts on Hundreds of Beavers. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.